Tora vintage fight. When light creeped in this morning, some of the rebel soldiers who tried to enter the government stronghold Camp Aguinaldo were seen being carried by medics because of injuries. The landing vehicle truck of the rebel soldiers was immediately destroyed by a single shot from a government 105 howitzer. When the rebels lost their main source of firepower, the rebel troops, mostly coming from the Philippine Marines, were paralyzed near Gate 1 of Aguinaldo, specifically at the St. Ignatius Chapel and at the dispensary. Military chaplain Father Rodolfo Gallardo then became the emissary of the rebel forces led by Major Cesar de la Peña and NCRDC Chief Brigadier General Rodolfo Biazon for the negotiation for the rebel troopers' surrender.
Father, please help. You are a psychologist. Okay. Please, work on their mind.
I will be there. Wag lang kayo mag-ano.
Sige. Hindi, okay. I will call you, I will talk to you on the phone if a decision is already. Okay? Father, 10 minutes, ha?
Rebel Marine Major Cesar de la Peña eventually agreed to Biazon's demand that they lay down their arms. Several recoilless rifles, bazookas, and machine guns were turned over by the rebels to Biazon. After the rebels were disarmed, an emotional scene followed.
Kawawa naman yung mga bata natin.
Kung nakuha natin yun,
if you love these people, I love them also.
What you will do
And
is,
so,
kunin nyo confiscate
I am glad that you made the decision.
I-deliver nyo siya rito.
And of course, you will be processed. I cannot of course, because
He's considered an enemy,
the offer was
sige.
the study that is being made is regarding the enlisted men. Okay, they will be taken care of. Now I am arguing for you to be returned to the PMAR for custody.
Sila mismo ayaw nilang maglaban. But we have to avoid, no, anyone to fire. So ilang ang ginawa ko, no.
With Doming Losada and Roel Pascual, I'm Chari Villa, ABS-CBN News. Three Tora vintage fighter planes flown by rebel pilots threatened government troops led by National Capital Defense Chief Brigadier General Rodolfo Biazon at Camp Aguinaldo early morning yesterday. With 500 or more men, Biazon dispatched the soldiers loyal to the government to secure vital installations within Camp Aguinaldo. As NCRDC men trooped to their posts, rebel forces were found occupying a vital nerve center of the armed forces, Armored Logistics Command, backed by a battalion sent led by Colonel Edgardo Batenga to assault rebel forces occupying the Logistics Command. It was a surprise to Biazon, however, that AFP Chief of Logistics, Commodore Domingo Calahati himself, turned his back against the Aquino government and led 300 of his men in repelling government forces. While Biazon was busy placing assault teams at Logcom, the rebel Toras dropped incendiary bombs at the PCINP headquarters in Camp Crame, causing the building to burst into flames. Luckily, PCINP Chief Major General Ramon Montaño was at the ground floor and was able to run towards a nearby building. Several fire trucks immediately ran to Crame to control the fire. Meanwhile, back at Camp Aguinaldo, the rebel Toras continued to hover, causing the government forces of Biazon to fire to prevent the Toras to stage its air-to-ground attacks. But the government ground forces were helpless against the Toras at that time, enabling the rebel Toras to drop another bomb, hitting directly AFP Chief of Staff General Renato de Villa's quarters and his aides' barracks. Luckily, the family of de Villa vacated the quarters at the nick of time. Hours after, reports about the downing of the rebel Toras, which dropped the bombs at Crame and Aguinaldo, reached the government forces at Camp Aguinaldo, which boosted the morale of the government soldiers. The rebel Tora-Toras were gunned down by a government F-5 jet fighter piloted by Major Danilo Atienza, 250th Strike Wing Commander, who was also later reported to have died in this mission. 2 U.S. Phantom jets then conducted persuasion flights hovering over the rebel-controlled LOGCOM. The persuasion flights of the U.S. Phantom jet successfully convinced rebel leaders holding LOGCOM to flee, abandoning their men. The rebel leaders who escaped were Commodore Domingo Calahate, Captain Proceso Maligalig, Lieutenant Claudio Lagasa, Major Nelson Albano, and Captain Manuel Izon. Thereafter, government troops regained control of the LOGCOM, and 300 rebel soldiers were later barracked. Government troops outside Camp Aguinaldo meanwhile regained control of Sangley Point and Villamor Air Base, which convinced Armed Forces Chief General Renato de Villa to declare that the coup has failed.
This coup that Hunasan and his group attempted again has failed.
With Joe Jamsed, Deo Jeronimo, and Ruel Pascual, Chari Villa, ABS-CBN News.